Hello, Vickies. It's going to be a short one today because my voice is still suffering from being sick. I'm sorry I've been gone for a little over a week. I lost my voice, but it's starting to come back and I've got a few stories for you today. So enjoy and I'll talk to you after. Last year, my friend and I were heading home from a camping and riding trip. We had another 4 hours to go on the highway when it started pouring rain. Visibility got bad, water started pooling up on the sides of the road, and most drivers slowed down to a crawl and turned their flashers on. This white car came flying up past us, just being a real jerk. I'll spare the details, but the white car ended up hydroplaning, flipping, and causing an absolutely horrific accident with multiple vehicles and a motorcycle involved. I keep a ton of medical supplies in my horse trailer, so we pulled over to offer to help, but thankfully paramedics arrived within minutes. We were instructed to get somewhere safe and call into the local station with our witness statement. We wanted to make sure no innocent drivers were blamed when it was the white car at fault. I took note of the mile marker and time, and we made our way off the highway to a restaurant to calm down and make the call. This is where it gets weird. The lady on the phone at the police station was very kind, but also very confused. When I told her we wanted to give a witness statement regarding the accident at mile marker 123, she asked when this happened. Today, roughly 20 minutes ago, I said. Ma'am, I'm very happy to say we haven't had any traffic accidents in this county today. What? I confirmed we had called the correct department and described exactly where the accident happened. She placed me on a brief hold to check with dispatch and came back to say, Ma'am, I don't know what to tell you. You've called the right county. The restaurant you're at is 5 minutes from the station, but we haven't had any highway accidents today. My friend and I start searching local traffic sites. We pull up maps that show accidents and road closures. We check the DOT website. We check local social media pages. We called the state police. Nothing. There was no accident. I can confirm with my own eyes that there was at least one fatality. The road should have been closed for a while, and cleanup would have taken hours. We thought about getting back on the highway in the direction we came from to see for ourselves, but neither of us were really in a mental state to do that, so we didn't. Now I kinda wish we would have because I feel crazy. We called back a day later, then a week later. We called the local fire and rescue department that responded to the scene, and which they apparently never responded to. It's been a year now, and it still bothers me. My friend and I talk about it all the time, and I'm so thankful she was there with me, or I would have thought I just lost it. We were both sober. We were awake, and we saw something that absolutely traumatized us, except it never happened. I just like to hope the Matrix glitched in a good way to spare those innocent drivers that day. When I was 17 years old, my friend and I had a really fun Saturday. She had a convertible VW, and we would drive around playing music and talking. We're still friends and have always had really good talks about the paranormal and the universe, etc., even as teens. I've actually always been intuitive and had paranormal interactions, as has she. Anyway, she ended up coming to my house, and I am the oldest of 5 kids. My bedroom was actually a breezeway that people would walk through to get to the garage, basement, and laundry room, so usually if a friend slept over, we slept in the TV room, which had 2 sliding glass doors into the dining room. If you walked through the dining room, you would get to the kitchen. There was a wall, so you couldn't see if anyone was sitting at the kitchen table until you walked in. It was the 90s, so we didn't have cell phones, so no alarm. And there was a clock that chimed on the hour in that TV room. The clock chimed, and we both woke up on the 2 couches and talked for a few minutes about our Sunday plan. Some of our friends had mentioned wanting to go to the beach, so we figured we would go call them. The clock said 8 a.m. when it chimed. We got up and walked into the kitchen, but no one was awake. 4 small kids and 2 parents just still asleep at 8 a.m. wouldn't have made sense. So we look at the clock in there and it says 6:30 a.m. Okay, maybe the clock in the TV room was wrong. We both go and lie back down, talking for a few, and then we decide to go back to sleep and wake up and call our friends about the beach later. We wake up this time because my sister comes in the room excited to see my friend. We hear the 2 sliding glass doors open and she comes in, waking us up loudly. So we trudge into the kitchen and my mother and father are sitting looking tired and they say, "Sorry they woke us up so early today." And we kept her out as long as we could. She's been up since 5 a.m. I look quickly to the clock and it's 6:15 a.m. I am so confused, but then sometimes I have lucid dreams and very vivid dreams, so I assume I dreamt the thing before. We chat for a minute, and I ask my friend if she's ready to call our friends, and she just says, no, I have to go. And she leaves in a hurry. When I called her later to check in because I thought maybe something happened, she said, "You're going to think I'm crazy, but..." And she proceeded to tell me exactly what I experienced, she had experienced, and I laughed and explained I had the same thing happened and thought I had just been lucid dreaming. We are now almost 40, and we still talk about that day and theorize on why and how it happened to both of us. We haven't told many people because when we did, our friends thought we made it up and our families just said we probably smoked too much pot. But we know that some sort of glitch happened, and it's led me to where I am today. I was a senior in college living off campus with a bunch of girls. Our apartment was on the corner of a major intersection. I pulled out of the driveway and took a left toward the major intersection. I wasn't going very fast because the light had just now changed to yellow, so I hit the brakes. It was the beginning of winter in New England, and the roads definitely were not treated enough for the snow we had just had. My tires spun, and I slowly glided right smack into the middle of the intersection. I was freaking out because at the same time, a huge truck was intending to cross the intersection perpendicular to me. I heard the sound of the truck's horn blaring and my blood pressure spiked. I blinked. When my eyes opened, I was back behind the white line stopped at the red light. I, to this day, cannot explain this experience. Also, after I was back behind the white line, there was no snow falling anymore and it was very peaceful. Beforehand, it was much colder and a light snow had been falling. This is one of the 2 most mind-blowing glitches I've had. I keep not posting it because I'm verbose and it might be long, so... My friend and I were tall, smart, long-haired men in the mid-80s, tight blue jeans, blue jean jackets. We were 100% sober, going to the local lake for a smoke. Maple Lake was roughly square, maybe 200 feet by 400 feet. East was a dam and cement areas to sit with diving boards. West was a peninsula where the 2 streams feed into the lake, north corner. North was berm and Susquehanna Railroad tracks. South was a part paved, part dirt path, road with a pavilion and suburbia above a steep hill. Object of interest: a pipe made of a deep socket wrench socket and a question mark-shaped metal tube that clicked into the square hole of the socket, heavy and metal. We had to make do back in those days, you know. I handed him the pipe. I felt his hand wrap carefully around it as we were over the lake and didn't want to drop it. I looked down right towards my right pocket as I let go of it, and I started to use my left hand to hold my right change pocket open to get the greenery out. Once out, I look at my friend. He was doing the same action, using his left hand to pry his front right pocket open to pull out a standard Bic lighter. He got it out, looked at me, and looked away. After waiting for him to hand me the pipe, I finally said something about it. He said he didn't have it. I said that I just handed it to him. I felt him take it. He said he started to, but then reached for his lighter. We repeated this conversation. We then searched ourselves. We then repeated the conversation and the search at least 3 more times. It had not dropped in the water. It was not resting on the 3-inch branch above our eyes that had been our handrail. The pipe was big, slippery, and heavy. It would not have perched there. It was not in any pockets. I often hooked the socket part in my left breast pocket when I needed to set it down, and it was not there. After these multiple pocket and area searches and frustrated discussions, we finally just both stared at each other with our hands out in a what the fuck motion as we scrunched our faces in disbelief. Suddenly, it falls from the blue sky above, hits my left thigh, and ricochets past my right knee. Thankfully, I've always had great reflexes, and I snatched it from the air. My friend had seen it fall from above me as we stared at each other. Roughly 23 years later, my friend says, "Hey, I wanted to ask, do you remember that day at Maple Lake?" And I finished with, "And the bowl vanished and then fell from the sky?" And he was like, "I still think about it from time to time and wondered if you remembered it." And I said, "I'll never forget that moment in time." Thanks for reading. This is 100% true. I could make up a better paranormal tale than this. This was a real weird day. Tonight, I spent the night in my girlfriend's house, as I do often. There was a brief 10 or so minute period where we went to her sister's room and just talked with her. We had returned to my girlfriend's room after this short amount of time to where she could not find her phone, so as most people would do, I FaceTimed it so she could find it in the midst of all the blankets. Within a few seconds, the phone was found, and she jokingly answered and said hello. I made a funny-looking face with my tongue sticking out, and she jokingly made a what the fuck kind of face and then hung up. However, that's the weird part. When the call was hung up, from my phone speakers there was a giggle, her giggle, which is a very distinct sound that we both know well. In person, as we sat on her bed, there was no giggle, just the face she was giving back to me. At first, I thought nothing of it, like, oh, maybe I'm just hearing things. Then she goes on to talk about the face I was making and then adds, "I don't think I laughed, though." Then I knew it really happened. We think it is extremely creepy and strange. So it was 2008 or 2009, I can't remember exactly. It was around the time that the USA was phasing out antenna TVs, and there was that huge push to get the digital converter boxes. I'm sure lots of you remember this. So like many people, my family only had cable in the living room. All our other TVs, including the one in my bedroom, needed the converter boxes. The converter boxes finally come, and I am tasked with hooking them up in my room, my parents' room, and my sister's room. I get them all hooked up, and all is well the first day. The next day, I noticed that periodically my TV would get a large black box that would appear perfectly centered in my TV and would take up about 60 to 70% of the screen, and all anyone could see was the outer border. This would happen multiple times daily, and only ever to my TV with my converter box. My parents didn't want to go through the hassle of replacing it, so I just had to deal with it. Fine. Months go by, and my best friend would come over and hang out all the time, and we would play games and watch TV. So he has also seen the strange box that appeared in my TV multiple times daily. Now the news is on, and I remember it was some interview with Reverend Al Sharpton. I don't recall exactly what it was about, but my friend and I both disagreed and were just acting obnoxiously and talking general shit about Al Sharpton and whatever he was harping on about. It is immediately after that the black box takes over the screen, except this time in white letters and all caps inside the box reads, "Shut up," with at least 8 exclamation points. We are both stunned and just immediately stare in silence at the screen. It wasn't subtitles, it wasn't closed captioning, it wasn't a hallucination. Someone somehow inserted those letters on my screen at the exact moment on purpose. Who it was or what the purpose is, I have never known, and it's drove me crazy thinking about it all these years. The message stayed on the screen for at least 2 full minutes, and then just disappeared. This was the catalyst for both of us to start our journey through all things strange and conspiracy, and I've never read of anything similar happening to anyone else. We tore apart the converter box later that night looking for any kind of transmitter device or microphone, but couldn't find anything of the sort. Of course, we had no experience with those things, and were teenagers, so entirely possible something was there that we just missed. I put the box back together and plugged it back in, just waiting and hoping another message would appear or something would come from it, but it never did. Neither of us have ever forgotten about it, though, and we both wish we could know how it happened and why. This happened a couple of years ago now. I used to work with a guy who I'll call Will, and we got along really well. We worked on a deli counter in a supermarket together. We were both fans of the comedy show Blackadder, and he loved Stephen Fry's character Melchett, so just for fun we used to call each other's names using our best Melchett impressions. Sadly, he left to go to university. About 2 weeks after he'd left, I was out on the front counter cleaning out the hot food unit, and I heard his voice call my name from just a few feet away, Melchett voice and all. I looked up, surprised that he was there because at that point he was supposed to be in France. I was all ready to say something along the lines of, "Oh, hi, Will, I didn't realize you were still here. I thought you'd left already." But he was nowhere around. His voice had been too close for him to just vanish in the half a second it took me to lift my head, and I'd been so sure it was him. But I figured it must have been someone else with a very similar-sounding voice, calling to someone with the same name as me. Pretty slim chance, but not impossible. Still weird. I carried on my cleaning and then went into the kitchen out back to wash up utensils. After a few minutes, my other colleague poked his head around the corner and was looking at me funny. He said, "Hey, you do know Will left, right?" I said, "Yeah," and asked why. I thought maybe he heard his voice too, but he said, "So how come you were just calling for him?" I said I hadn't, but he insisted I had, and he'd heard my voice call Will's name 2 or 3 times, and it was definitely coming from the kitchen. He didn't seem to be trying to mess with me, and even if he was, I hadn't told him about hearing Will's voice call my name just a half hour earlier. This was a few years ago. My father, his partner, my brothers, and I were heading back from a wedding celebration. Before entering the car, I called shotgun. My dad tried to convince me to let his partner sit in the front, but I was stubborn. She fell asleep in the back of the car, and off we went. It was pitch black, and we were driving down a narrow highway road which had 1 lane for each direction. For some reason, my dad must have thought it was a 2-lane one-directional road and was driving around 90 kilometers an hour in the left lane. Suddenly, I noticed massive headlights that were growing larger only a few feet in front of us and shouted, "Dad! Dad! Dad!" We were inches away from colliding with a semi-trailer. Suddenly, my dad pulls the steering wheel to the right. I'm fully braced, ready for the car to flip or hit the side rail, but As impossible as it sounds, we just shifted instantly one lane to the right in the smoothest way possible. It was impossibly perfect for the speed we were going and the type of car we were in. We felt the blast of air of the semi pass us at the same time. Never managed to explain what happened there. Anyone have a similar experience? Hello, little Vickies. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard and you haven't subscribed already, please do subscribe and hit the like button, as they're both very helpful to my growth on YouTube. And if you have a suggestion or simply want to say hello, please leave a comment. I love to hear what you have to say. I post every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday by 5 p.m. Pacific when I'm not sick. And if you have a story of your own you'd like to share and possibly have read on the channel, send it to me at veronica45stories@gmail.com. Link is also in the description, as are other ways to support the channel if you feel so inclined. Thanks again for being here. I appreciate it more than I can ever say. And until next time, be good.